Hi everyone, Will and Alex here, and today we are going to share 30-day trips from Grafenwoehr in the northeastern part of Bavaria. All of these spots are within an hour and a half driving distance, and we are going to order them starting with the shortest distance from Graf. We're planning to make some videos of this area of hiking spots, castle ruins, and castles and Christmas markets you can go to, so if you're interested in that content, make sure to subscribe.
So we lived in Grafenwoehr for 3 years, and some of that was during the COVID lockdowns, which made us very familiar with our local regions. We'll leave a ton of further information and links in the description below. Okay, let's dive in.
PARKTSTEIN is a geological extinct volcano hilltop castle ruin. These rock formations are known as the most beautiful basalt cones in Europe. There's a winding path which leads up to the chapel and really good views. We made a little compilation video of this location on our channel, I'll link below. In town, there's also the Vulkanerlebnis PARKTSTEIN Volcano Museum, which looks really cool as well. Next up, we have BARBARABERG and the hike to the cloister. So this site has been a pilgrimage church since the Middle Ages. Now it's only open once a year in the summertime. People hike from the Kloster Speinshart to BARBARABERG. The whole loop takes about 2 hours. We didn't hike, but just walked around the outside of the building for a little bit. Number 3 from Graf at 20 minutes is the town of Kemnath, which you might have heard of. We spent a lot of time in Kemnath, and it's one of our favorites. On Sundays during the summer, you can visit the Enzenstein Hütte and make sure to bring cash with you. You can also hike to the cross, and we'll make a detailed video of that soon. This area is also known for carp, and you'll find carp served seasonally at local restaurants like Zur Fantasy. There is a 3-kilometer walking tour of all of the carp sculptures around Kemnath called the Grafenwoehr that I can link below. A few kilometers away, you'll find the ruins of Waldeck Castle, which are free to visit and also offer great views of the surrounding area. Back in Kemnath's town center, there are a couple of things you can do. There's a small history and handgun museum with very limited hours, so check their website before going. I wouldn't skip on the thrift store either. Sometimes they have really affordable Drindel and Lederhosen, so make sure to go there if it's open and bring cash. You can also have some Zeugel beer at Horderei Zeugels. You can also find the oldest family-run bakery in Germany. It's called Baker Adel, and the family has lived there since 1392, and the bakery has been in operation since 1573. Kemnath also has its own brewery. While you can't visit it, you can get some of the beer at the local Rewe and Edeka up the street. Just a few minutes from town is the little town of KULM, and this is where you can find my favorite antique store on the planet, Udo's. It's open Thursday through Sunday, and it's cash only. Udo is super friendly and always has new and affordable treasures every week. At number 4, we have Weiden, and if you live anywhere near Graf, you've probably already been here. There's a lot of things to do, and it's a nice place to walk around, drink a beer, go shopping, and have some street food. It's also home to my favorite brunch spot, Café La Pareille, and to my favorite little gift store, Sona. If you're looking for discounted crystal, we're talking Waterford and Tiffany, you can find it at Nachtmann Crystal Factory, only a short drive away. Will can tell you I've spent way too much money here. If you are looking for more ceramic type things, the Zeltman Weiden discount store has a ton of good options as well. In Weiden, I've also visited the ceramic museum and thought they had a really good collection. Most of it is in German, but I just translate it with my phone. At 22 minutes away is the RAUHER KULM, which is really good for hiking. The mountain trail is closed during the winter, but it leads to an observation tower with lovely views for many kilometers around. There's also a pretty new restaurant there called the KULM Terrasse, and it was built with a beautiful view of the countryside. They are open on Sundays, and it's a great place to have a little cafe and kuchen. Next up, we have the city of AMBERG, south of Grafenwoehr. AMBERG has a really good tourism website that outlines all of the things there are to do there and all the really cool buildings to see, so I'll link that below. We really enjoyed walking around the historic center with all the shops, restaurants, and museums. I went to the Air Art Museum, or the Luft Museum, and that was super interesting and unique. You can take a flatboat cruise down the river, and it's only €7 for adult and €2 for children. AMBERG has a strong beer culture, and one of its most popular beer gardens is the Winkler Brauwert. Near AMBERG is the world's only sand skiing facility. The Monte Colino dune is where the sand skiing world championship is held every year, which sounds really interesting to see. 35 minutes away is the lovely little town of NABBURG. When we visited, it was during COVID, and I don't know if that is why, but it was extremely quiet during the day. The village is over 1,000 years old and sits on this hilltop that you can see from the main road, and it just looks so enticing. We walked around for a little bit, and there is a city museum and an original Ritter Mall theater dinner experience, which I am very interested in. Next, at number 8, we have the Flossenbürg concentration camp. This is closer than going to Dachau near Munich if you're wanting this type of World War II history. It is free admission, and there are signs in German and English all around the property. Guided tours are available upon request, and prices can be found on their website. At number 9, we have POTTENSTEIN. We have made a video titled 8 Things to Do in Pottenstein that we can link below, but here are some highlights. The Pottenstein Castle and Museum is €6 for an adult and $2.50 for a child. It is a beautiful old castle on a hill with the original covered wooden steps leading up to the building. There has been a castle on the site for nearly 1,000 years, but most of the castle is from the 16th century and includes lots of antiques from the same period. Make sure not to miss the goats on the hill just across from the castle. Nearby is Teufelshöhle, or Devil's Cave, which is €7 for adult and $4 for a child, and they have entry about every 45 minutes with a guided tour with an English pamphlet provided. Erlebnisfelsen Pottenstein is an alpine coaster, which is €4 for an adult and $3 for a child. This might sound like a kid's activity, but it was actually super fun, and as an adult you can choose your own pace and careen around the tight corners as fast as you want to. In town, there are a lot of restaurants, and you can also find a torture museum, which was about €12 for adult, and I would not recommend this for kids. It actually managed to scare me pretty good, and I have not been in a torture museum since this one. Next up is Bayreuth. First, I'm going to talk about the Hermitage Bayreuth. It's a little bit outside of town, and it is definitely worth a visit. The entry is free to the castle grounds, which include the Neuschloss and the Altes Schloss, the new and old castles. The gardens contain a lot of ponds. There's an ornate fountain that runs from May to October, a cafe, a beer garden, a dragon's lair, a cave, lots of good hiking trails and spots for a picnic. It's a really, really nice place to visit, especially in the springtime. In town, there's the Bayreuther Margraville Opera House, and this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The theater was built in the 18th century and was restored to its nearly original fashion in 2018. The tour and the video are both in German, but there are some English subtitles, and they'll give you an English pamphlet to help fill in some of the blanks. The Neuschloss and the Hofgarten are both in town, and you can get a tour of the palace, which will give you a look inside what the aristocracy looked like back during the Baroque period. The walk around the gardens is lovely year-round and totally free. The Meisels Brewery. This brewery is locally famous. It boasts a delicious Weiss beer or wheat beer, and their current owner is half American, half German, so they also have a huge variety of craft beer, including IPAs, pale ales, stouts, and even a seasonal pumpkin beer on tap. The IPAs was one of Will's favorite beers, and they also have an audio tour available of the brewery if you're interested in that. Oscar's Das Wursthaus was one of our favorite German restaurants to bring people. One of the first things we did when we moved to the area was book a tour to go up in the tower of the Stadtkirche in Bayreuth. It is all in German, but you know what? It was an experience, and you definitely get some really good views out of it. Next up is WALDSASSEN, specifically the library hall. And we are not one to say that something is a hidden gem, but of everything on this list, WALDSASSEN is it. The basilica there was built in the early 1700s, and it's totally beautiful. There are fancifully dressed martyrs, skeletons displayed in their clear coffins throughout the basilica. Those are really interesting to look at. The best part was the Library Hall Abbey WALDSASSEN. It was restored in the mid-1800s and has intricate wooden carvings, a painted ceiling, and ornamental plasterwork. Think Beauty and the Beast. There are also carved allegorical wooden figures. The tour is in German, but they'll give you a packet of information in English. It is really, really beautiful and definitely worth a visit. You're not allowed to take photos inside and you have to put on some little booties, but I mean, it was definitely worth it. Also, not to be missed in WALDSASSEN, we found a really, really cool antique store called Leiden Kunterbund, and I'll put a link to that too. Back near Bayreuth, we have the Garden Art Museum and Salamander Trail. So as I said, this is outside of Bayreuth, and it's the perfect place to visit in spring or summer. The Garden Museum is located in the former royal residence, and the grounds are free to walk around. Ask for English information from the museum staff. Also nearby is a salamander wildlife refuge, and you can walk around and see what you can find. I actually made a video about the Garden Art Museum and Salamander Trail, which I can link below. Next up, we're moving on to GÖBWEINSTEIN, TÜCHERSFELD, and BARNFELS, which are all about 45 minutes away from Grafenwoehr. This whole area is really cool, and there's a lot of dramatic rock formations and caves. If you zoom out on Google Maps, you'll see so many observation decks and hiking trails marked. GÖBWEINSTEIN is a town with a basilica and a castle on the hill. There's a walking tour that we will link below, which takes you to all the scenic spots and views of the town. Nearby is TÜCHERSFELD, which has a good hiking trail leading up to a dramatic rock feature. Here you'll also find the local regional museum. Down the street is BARNFELS, a little town with a castle, ruins, and more hiking trails with rock climbing spots. I'll link a video we made to that as well. Number 14 is OCHSENKOPF, which is about 50 minutes from Graf. In the summertime, it's a nice place to hike. There's a chairlift that will take you to the top. We never got to use it because of COVID, but we are assuming it runs in summer and winter. In the winter, it's a good place to ski, snowboard, sled, and cross-country ski. We normally parked at Parkplatz Ochsenkopf Süd, and nearby is Malmeisel with another chairlift and a nice restaurant on the top called the Bayreuther Haus. In the winter, there's also a hut at the bottom with warm drinks and snacks. KULMBACH, almost an hour away. KULMBACH is home to Plassenburg Castle with 4 different museums inside. We thought they were really well done and very extensive. There is a Trachten store there called Welt der Tracht, which is where I got some of my more fancy drindles. There is also the Kulmbacher Mannschaft Brewery, which houses a Bavarian brewery museum, Bavarian bakery museum, and a German spice museum. Make sure to look out for the Kulmbacher Bierwoche Festival happening the first week of August. Next is EGLOFFSTEIN, which is famous during the Easter season because it has the world's largest Easter fountain. We never got to see it, but it looks really cool. There's also a Baroque garden and a castle you can visit when you're in the area too. Next is Hof. There are a lot of outdoor activities to do here, like visit the zoo or the botanical gardens. Nearby is the Untreusee with hiking trails and a cool labyrinth. Ludwigstrasse is the main street of the town with large churches on either end. We spent our time walking around the limited COVID Christmas stands and walking to the labyrinth ruins and tower in the Brugger Park. Erlangen is a university town just north of Nuremberg with a botanical garden and lots of shopping. We went there with some of our friends who lived there, and they recommended the Brasserie for lunch, Café Erlangen Tea House for breakfast or lunch, dinner at Steinbach Brewery, dinner at Ristorante Carpaccio, drinks at Spruits, and Bogart's for a nightcap. One thing we really enjoyed visiting here was the giant flea market near the train station, held on the second Saturday of every month. I thought the selection was awesome, and we got some really cool Bavarian gifts. Regensburg. Regensburg was a popular day trip for us. We went here a lot of times and brought many guests. It still has some standing Roman ruins you can see, and the river walk is a must, as is the oldest sausage stand in Germany. Definitely make sure to get some while you're here. There is still a privately owned castle, and it's where the Christmas markets are held every year. In Regensburg is also my favorite church in Germany, St. Emmeram's. I have a whole video to that I can link below too. The historic old town is beautiful with the massive Gothic cathedral and the small antique shops on this little road I'll mark here. A favorite local pub is the Hinterhaus, and I can also recommend Anna Loves Bread and Coffee as a good cafe to visit. This is also the starting point for many boat rides on the Danube. They have a really good tourism website that we can link below if you want to check that out further. Number 20 is Nuremberg. Obviously, if you're in this area, you're going to visit Nuremberg. We'll make another video on it, but here are a few ideas. For all World War II history, there is an outstanding documentation center at the rally grounds. The Imperial Castle of Nuremberg also has a really good museum and tour you can take. Zum Goldenstern is the oldest bratwurst restaurant in the world. There's a ton to see in the historic center, and of course, don't miss out on the Christmas market. It's insane, but you've got to go once. Next up, we are headed to MARIÁNSKÉ LÁZNÉ, which is a spa town in the Czech Republic. It's the second largest spa town after Karlovy, which we'll talk about in a minute. Even though it's smaller, there are still several colonnades to see and lots of health spas to stay at. I'll put a link to some below. If you're looking for a beer spa closer than Prague, there's one here called Beer Spa Beerland. Number 22 is Kronach. We were really pleasantly surprised by Kronach. We parked our car right at the Rosenborg Fortress and walked around the fort built in the Middle Ages. It's actually the site of our first ever YouTube video. We loved exploring the historic town center and walking along the river to get a better view of the fortress. It's a super charming town and definitely worth a day trip. Next up is Bad Staffelstein. Full disclosure, we did not visit here, but I always had it saved on my map, and I love that all of these really cool locations were so close to each other. Kloster Bonds is a former Benedictine abbey that has beautiful views of the surrounding area and a beer garden. The Basilica of the 14 Holy Helpers has a cool legend behind it, and it's a good example of late Baroque Rococo period architecture. The Staffelberg Klause Beer Garden also has beautiful views of the countryside. We always drove by this place, and I noticed it from the car, and I really wish we had time to visit. Number 24 is CADOLZBURG. It's a beautiful little town, and I actually went here for a half-day trip after I dropped Will off at the Nuremberg airport. I made a little video about it that I can link below, and I will say the castle museum is really well done. We're going back to the Czech Republic to Karlovy Vary and Loket Castle. Karlovy Vary is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's the most famous spa town in the Czech Republic, and it has 13 main springs and 300 smaller ones. Make sure to buy a traditional porcelain drinking glass and enjoy the health benefits of drinking the thermal mineral water. It's okay. You can do this at many of the colonnades throughout town. They are free to enter, and I think they're open 24/7. The Karlovy Vary tourism website lists a lot of good places to visit and has a lot of information about spa hotels and treatments you can experience while you are there. Speaking of spas, here there's also a Beerland beer spa for those who want to sit in something other than hot mineral water. There's a lot of good hiking and scenic spots here, as well as beautiful architecture all throughout the main streets along the river. In fact, the Grand Pup Hotel was the inspiration for the Grand Budapest Hotel. While we were here, we also got some super thin waffles and a bottle of good old Bäckerovka, which is produced here, but you can also buy it in grocery stores in Germany. A short drive away is Loket Castle, which you can visit for a small fee of €6 for adult and €5 for children. We never had the chance to visit here, but it looks really beautiful and was always on my list. Another place on my list was Svabtosh Rocks, which are granite formations found in the national park. The hiking here looks super pretty in fall. Continuing on in the Czech Republic is Pilsen. We visited here for one thing, and that was to go on the Pilsner Urquell brewery tour. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Pilsner Urquell, but I am a fan of anything behind the scenes, and everything tastes better coming from the barrel. The tour tickets cost €12 a person. It was a very good tour. In the town center, in the Republic Square, you'll find the St. Bartholomew Cathedral and the beautiful town hall building. I found a good blog with things to do in Pilsen that I'll link for you below. At number 27, we have Bamberg. Bamberg is another one of our favorites and a great place to bring people who are visiting. The most famous image of Bamberg is that of the Altes Rathaus, which sits right above the river. Another popular thing to do here is drink a half-liter of smoke beer or Rauch beer. You need to get it from this brewery called Schlenkerla. If you're not lucky enough to get a table, there's usually an overflow of people outside enjoying the beverage. You definitely need to walk up to the Bamberg Cathedral and Neue Residence Bamberg. Both offer beautiful views of the city. You can tour the rooms of the 17th century residence for €6 per person. There's also a rose garden, which is open year-round for free. In the warmer months, the cafe will be open too. Back down at the river, you can find the Klein Venedig, or Little Venice. It's a quaint set of streets, but I think the best view is from a river boat cruise you can take from the dock. You'll also find a ton of museums and good shopping in Bamberg. It's also the location of our favorite Christmas market. Definitely don't sleep on it. We're heading southeast now to FURTH im Wald. So FURTH im Wald is on my list for its annual Dragonstisch. I unfortunately didn't get to go because of COVID, and I'm so bummed about it. From what I can tell, it's like part live action play where knights are fighting a fire-breathing dragon in town, a beer festival, and a Renaissance festival. Although I didn't get to experience it, I did at least go down to visit. It's really adorable. There are dragon motifs everywhere and cute little shops with knight costumes and swords. I'll put a link below to the website for the Dragonstisch. It looks like it's on for 2022. WELTENBURG Abbey. In the town of Kelheim, not far from Regensburg, you can take a riverboat to a monastery. The boats run from April to November and the ride takes about half an hour. A round-trip ticket will cost you about €13.50 per person. At the abbey, we were there for the beer and the beer garden. This abbey claims to be the oldest abbey brewery in the world and is famous for their Weltenburger Barock Dunkel. We were also able to visit the church, and I have to say it's one of my favorites. Besides the all-around stunning interior, the altar is unique. Instead of a normal crucifix, there's a statue of St. George atop a horse stabbing a dragon in the face. All the church's details are very well explained on their website, which I'll put below. Since we wanted to drink a lot of beer, we decided to stay in the town of Kelheim, which was fine. It's a bit sleepy, so if you're wanting something a bit more exciting, a night in Regensburg might be better. All right, we made it to the last day trip at number 30, FURTH. Okay, guys, this one took some detective work, and that is why it is only 76 minutes away and not the farthest location. And this is because I had seen this image floating around Instagram. By the way, this account is really good to follow for travel inspo around the Graf area. Anyways, as you can see, it's labeled as Franken. I took that to be the tiny farming town of Franken in the middle of nowhere. After scouring the internet, this photographer was being tricky in hiding the location and had it marked as the general region of Franken or Franconia in northern Bavaria. After further detective work, I found this exact location to be in FURTH, just outside of Nuremberg. This building is part of a series of older buildings with these beautiful blue shingles, and in the 1920s was home to the lending library of Fritz Otter, who was a war opponent, anarcho-syndicalist, and lithographer and writer. You can find it on Google Maps here. Although we never got to visit, FURTH looks like a lovely town, and I'll leave some links below to their tourism website, which has a lot of good information. I'm just thankful that I found out that this picture is taken in FURTH and not Franken, so you didn't drive there for nothing. That is it, y'all. If you want us to make further videos about any of these spots, leave it in the comments, and also leave a comment if you have any further recommendations of places in the area. We'll see you next time. Bye.